Hi, this is Vicki Hannah Lynn from Outrageous Visions, See Who You Are Meant to Be. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Sara Morell, a college student and bartender who lives in Lebanon, Oregon. She's 25 years old. I first met Sara when I was teaching a human potential class at a community college. And on that Friday night of that 3-day class, I asked the class, what would you do if you could do anything? If you didn't have to worry about being too poor or too young or too old or too stupid or that it was impossible, if you let yourself know what you really wanted to do, what would you do?
Hello, so here's Sara in the flesh as it were, and I want her to tell her story of how she got here in Bali. So take it away, Sara.
So I took a class called Human Potential, and I met Vicki on a Friday, and she was talking about Bali and some of her trips and some of the work that she does, and I didn't even think of it while in class, but I got home that night, and as I was laying in bed, it kind of hit me like, I'm going to ask her. And of course, as crazy as that is, I did. The next morning I got to class, and she asked where Sara was, and I waved my hand, and she handed me a butterfly, and I have 3 butterfly tattoos on me, and butterflies have always symbolized something for me. And when she handed me this butterfly, it was for signing up for her Week of Joy, and I was the first person to do that. And so when she handed me the butterfly, I knew then, as crazy as it was to ask some woman I don't even know, without the money or the capability to go to a foreign country that's almost, 22 hours of a flight away, I knew then I was supposed to. So the end of the day came, I think it was, or a break, and I came up and asked if anybody had ever gone with her, and she said no. She felt like someone was supposed to go with her soon, and asked if I could go, and she said of course, to my astonishment. And I went home that evening and figured out a way to who I would maybe ask, and not thinking that they would ever say yes. I asked my family, and my grandmother supported my stay here, and my mother paid for my flight, and here I am in Bali.
Yes, and the other part of that is when I brought her, because what I brought her was a butterfly, not sequin, beaded purse that I had bought in Bali, and I've never done that before with a student, but I just had this feeling that I should do that. So I looked in my Bali bag, and I thought, oh, this would be good, and so then I gave it to her. So, I'm just saying all these things hooked together. And then, so Friday night she hears about it, Saturday she asks, Sunday she comes in, she's manifested the money. Monday she came over to help me fill out the visa, we filled out visa applications, and she got her ticket. So that's the fastest manifestation I can think of. Now, what's happened for you here in Bali since you've been here?
So much. And I want to add too that if on the Friday of her class, it was her teachings that gave me the inspiration to ask. So just the question of what would you do if you could do anything, instantly I would go to Bali with her. So it was the teachings on the Friday that really, and if I hadn't have held on to that energy, and it is like just writing it fast. You can think of a million reasons not to have asked, but I just wrote that energy, and just, it does feel almost like jumping off a cliff. You dived into it. So, but since I've been here, I've met nothing but amazing people and have learned so much. I will never be the same, and I'm so thankful for this trip. And I gone through some really hard times right before I came, and I couldn't even imagine how different my life would be if I hadn't have walked through that door that was opened for me. And if I led with my fear, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have learned so much.
Well, one thing I want to mention is that Sara got interviewed by a reporter from Elle magazine, ELLE magazine, for people who had, he's interviewing people here who've read Eat, Pray, Love. So watch for her in the magazine, because they went a couple places and took photographs, and I mean, that's going to happen. And you went out with a famous painter, and he gave you a print, and, and I already have a picture of you riding on the elephant. Really cool.
Which was magic.
And tell what happened when you went into your bartending job, because I think that's a really important piece of this.
Oh, I really thought that I would be fired. I mean, I expected 5 weeks in Bali, and during this process of the class, my work was opening up a second bar, and so not only were they going through their own transition, but they were hiring tons of new people who are qualified, more experienced than I have. And I really thought that going in and saying, in your middle of your transition, I'm going to leave you for 5 weeks, I thought that I would be fired. And I embraced that, and it's not like I'm just a college student. I'm a college student who has a new car and a new truck and house payments and cell phone. So it wasn't just leaving something, it was leaving something and having to pay bills and having a dog and a cat, and so I went in and I told them, and I really did expect to be fired. And they looked at me and just said okay. And not only did they say okay, but they gave me 3 weeks paid vacation. So it was, I couldn't, if you were to dream something, I would never, somebody was to say this would be, or if I was to imagine where I would be in the next month, I would never have thought this, and for everything just to have worked so well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is when you let it in, but you did all the important stuff. You let yourself entertain that question, what would I do if I could do anything? And then go to Bali with Vicky, and then it was like, well, but I don't even know her, and how dare I even ask, and this is crazy, and yet you did it. You did it anyway. And then you went and you got support from people that you were...
Never thought I really
You never thought you would get support from, and you did all these things, these leaning in things, this very courageous, continuing to listen. And I have to tell you, well, the person behind the camera right now is named Daisy. And I got to tell you the story because Sara, I went out with some people and there supposedly wasn't enough room in the van, so Sara had her first time by herself, so she goes walking off outside of the hotel. We're in a little village outside of Ubud. The village is called Penistan. So she's walking down the street, and Daisy's sitting in a little room, a little restaurant, and hollers at her. And this is everywhere Sara goes, she just meets people like a magnet. So, every time she goes out, she comes back with a new best friend. And when she's here, she's coming back with new best friends from all over the world. And so it's you getting to be you completely, thoroughly, and a more expanded version of you than you've ever thought you could be. And you're in a place where people can see that and respond to that, and the connections and the opportunities are just
endless.
endless.
And it's not fighting that energy.
Exactly.
I could feel the pull, and my fear and everything else going through my head, I could have fought that energy, and it was so exciting, and you just kind of grab onto that and just don't lead with fear.
Well, I say follow your bliss or it will stalk you. And she followed her bliss, and now she's not being stalked. But just something in you would have known. I mean, if you hadn't done, I call it a courage hangover. When you're asked to do something courageous and you don't do it, you get that, ugh. And you would have no idea what you missed, except your body would have known, your spirit would have known what you missed.
And like the scuba diving.
And the scuba diving. We have to save that because I think we don't have enough time for the scuba diving story. Let's just say it's another example of leaning into the fear and the transformation. So let's just do a little this for the end. Bye. Bye.
So that's all it takes. Just ask yourself the question, what would I do if I could do anything? Listen to the answer, and you may end up in Bali. This is Vicki Hannah Lynn from Outrageous Visions, See Who You Are Meant to Be. I'm offering a $47 Outrageous Visions strategy session. Check it out on my website, www.outrageousvisions.com. Maybe you'll come and play with me in Bali.